watch out for those stingers and welcome to Cinema Recap. Today's bussing adventure is The Swarm. A buggy movie, so, spoilers ahead. Nice dome. I'm sure it won't be used for brutal purposes. Inside you can see it's a shelter for insects. The woman working around seems to be the caretaker. Now the next day, she seems to be collecting the dead insects. Then she emails somebody that these insects are slowly dying and barely reproducing. The guy on the other end gives her some kind of tip on how to grow back her dwindling locust army. Then the woman, Virginie Hebrard, calls to her daughter to get the boy to soccer practice.
Laura?
They arrive at soccer practice, but they come in a bit late and the kid goes to practice while his older sister's annoyed by what seems to be some knobhead bullies. Maybe they're from her school. Back at the farmhouse, Virginie tries to shill her products to some Santa Claus-looking guy. He then comes and takes a taste of her fried locusts. Well, Santa seems to be satisfied with that taste, but complains about Virginie's lack of locust stock. This is Laura Hebrard, Virginie's daughter, and the one who got annoyed by the crowd earlier. The girls are working on farmlands with sickles, and they discuss how Virginie didn't make a sale. Say hello to Kareem. He lends some money to Virginie to make it to the end of the month. Next, he calls somebody named Pascal to try and shill locusts for it, asking for buyers. Back to Virginie. She asks Gaston, her son, to turn all the lights in the room. After those lights set up, she asks Laura about Gaston's soccer practice, which he got a bit wheezy and needs a yes or no to soccer camp. Virginie's left undecided if she'll let her son go. Later on, Laura's watching a video of some kids ridiculing her by making a horrid recreation of a wrap with some bugs in it. It's a hit to her and her mother for selling those fried locusts. After that brutal spectacle, Laura and Virginie load up some locusts in a car, while Gaston in his room tries to closely examine one of the locusts eat one of his warts off. So Virginie tries to deliver some goods, while the two kids encounter Kevin, a walking douche. Laura confronts the crack addict and he says the video he made is making quite the bank. But Kevin goes a bit into the deep end and kids these days are so brutal. Virginie breaks him off and then Gaston says Laura got ticked off because Kevin said something about their dad. They come home eventually and the two have a little spat while Laura's in the shower. Some business complications come to Laura in the form of a call. Then she visits Laura in her room to put ice on her black eye. The power goes out, to which Laura tends to, and then they all come down to play some cards. Now at school, Laura's with some boy. Then she exchanges dagger eyes with Kevin. No idea what came through her mind, but she approaches Kevin, telling him she'll move in a month exactly. The next good news that we hear is Laura is actually making a sale. The man buying it is some tubby duck farmer. He's good with taking it off her hands, so she delivers it at the back of his van. She was about to receive a check for $200 until she got insulted by that price and the fact that Kareem was helping him buy it. With this knowledge, she went mad. Then he's all spooked and storms off. Well, she's not satisfied with this, so she goes all out on that locust dome farm until she slips and is knocked out. A little later sees that she got some scars from her rampage, and the locusts are feeding on them. She swipes them off and calms down afterwards. So a little later she's watching her kids calling each other morons by the sink. Then they notice she's totally out of it. She helps them with the dishes afterwards. That night, Virginie shares a smoke with Kareem, confronting her about the duck guy. Kareem says he doesn't mind lending money to her. Then she goes on to shill her locust products, but Kareem asks her if she misses working as a nurse. Well, she doesn't, and speaking of nurses, Kareem notices her scar, which she lies where she got it from, and then she heads off. Walking home, she hears some ominous noises coming from the locust farm, which she goes to investigate. And trust me, it's not really anything interesting, and she goes to bed afterwards. The day after, she stresses about packing Gaston's school stuff. Then she tells them to hurry up so they won't miss the bus. They leave and Virginie senses something's off about that locust house again. So she investigates and inside, they're rattling like crazy. She suddenly unwraps her bandage and has the great idea of sticking her scarred arm in it. Then some gross eye candy of her extracting locust parts from her arm happens. while the kids come home early. Foreshadowing, my dear Gaston. He goes to bed, and then Virginie again feels a tingle with the locusts. So she goes in there, all geared up this time, and sees what they're up to. All she finds is some new eggs and some dead larvae. After another boring evening, Laura and Kareem are seen setting up a new space for the locusts so they'll have more room to breed. After a while of hard work, the kids come home. The mother and son race inside to the locust pen. Gaston sees they've increased in numbers and in size, all thanks to parsley. Gaston takes one locust to a box on the table, and it jumps like crazy before being horridly crushed by Laura. She gets into a familiar and heated argument with Laura, and then she asks if Gaston is with her, and now she's asking if Laura's with her. She storms off. Later in the evening, we see Virginie in the locust pen, probably getting ready for the expansion. Then the locusts get too erratic. The night is young, and Kareem is still out here grinding. Then he encounters Virginie. They share another smoke while walking. They share a little banter over farming sales, and then she leaves. The next morning, Virginie's working up an appetite over those bugs. Then she makes her way to the duck farmer to try and sell them again. More tender and juicier, my friend. He's interested, and it sells for $500. Moments later, she calls a seller for blood. Guess this is her twilight phase. Outside, the hobo neighbor with a shotgun gets an eyeful of expansion. 30 liters of farm animal blood. She then prepares the blood for feeding and distributes it to the feeding troughs. She then asks Laura to grill a few of the locusts. Later on, 2 a.m., Virginie goes to the locust pen while Laura catches the scene. The following day, Laura was just vibing, and then Luke, the boy from school earlier, came because he was worried. The two made Gaston and his goat, Huguette, go somewhere else. Then Laura can't take it anymore and beats up the bags where the locusts are in, not to mention cutting a hole into the greenhouse. Soon, they get away from there. Somewhere nearby, some of the locusts catch Gaston's eye. Then a giant swarm of them just storm out of that greenhouse. They soon swarm the truck that Gaston and the goat are in, but the goat is outside. The swarm clears, and Gaston runs to his mother in the truck. Virginie asks Laura to watch her brother, and for Luke to go home. She drives away, and there she finds Huguette running away to push daisies. Yeah, hiding in the afterlife. She lies more to her son, and then she confronts her amazing daughter who freed all these bloodthirsty locusts. So she drags Laura to her room. Then they go and search for the goat in the car. And she breaks down looking at her son doing a pointless task. Now the following day, Virginie is seen working at the kitchen when Laura encounters her. She's asking if they could go for a picnic since the weather is stunning. So to the beach they go. Virginie tries to make some small talk and ask Gaston about soccer camp. He's thrilled to know that Virginie will be signing him up for the summer camp, so he goes for a victory swim. Soon Laura goes for a swim, and Virginie's worriedly looking at her children. Fun's over. Looks like the first thing they encounter is Kareem with a new set of wheels. Then it turns out that Virginie gave her daughter a brand spanking new scooter. She's thrilled and gives it a go. What? No, thank you? Nighttime, also a good smoke sesh time. Virginie tries some of Kareem's wine. She thinks it's okay, but Kareem's just fishing for compliments. Of course, they already get frisky until... Go ahead and drink Kareem's wine every time you see Virginie in an awkward moment. Well, it's hangover day, and little Gaston plays soccer by the greenhouses while Virginie becomes a Karen because her 50-liter blood order can't immediately be pulled through. Then some Pawn Star guy comes to ask for more space for some new delivery, but the tree's in the way, so... Well, the little boy tries to stop her mother from chopping that down, so Virginie works on the greenhouse instead. Okay, now she's just straight up feeding herself to locusts. Kareem mentions this is just one of 2 of the new greenhouses. Guess Virginie's making bank. Well, now she's working frantically while Kareem just awkwardly hangs there. She tells him to leave and not just simply drop by. It's a little rude, but okay. So hours later, she's in a smoke sesh all by herself. It's that annoying neighborhood dog again. Virginie gets the dog and takes it inside the greenhouse. Oh, I hope she doesn't do what I'm thinking she's gonna do. Yeah, she did it. That, my dear, is called an infestation. A massive one. Oh, wait. It's just Gaston having a nightmare. Now, the morning after, Virginie wipes up the scene of the crime while Laura struggles to find a pair of tidy whities. Suddenly, the duck farmer comes along with a friend named Guillaume. They do some business while the kids inside prepare for Gaston's soccer camp. Laura honestly wants her brother to have a fun time, but he's not sharing the same enthusiasm. The day passes by and Virginie drives somewhere. Later, she's shown carrying a body bag. She cuts it up and drains the blood on buckets. And she's going crazy Aztec. Dawn comes, and Laura's trying to wake Virginie up for soccer camp, but she's too exhausted from playing Ted Bundy last night, so she'll just catch up. Spoiler alert, she doesn't catch up, and Laura's left to force Gaston on the bus, and then Laura heads home. Laura goes to her mom's room and finds a bit of blood on her clothes. So she heads for one of the locust pens, and it's a whole new meaning to workaholic. Laura panics and rushes to the house's bathroom where she can't believe her eyes on what she just saw. Later, Virginie wants to talk to her. Meanwhile, Kareem tends to his vineyards, when he suddenly gets some text from Laura that something's wrong with her mother. Kareem heads on over and just sees Virginie frustrated at fixing a broken machine. Laura comes in and Virginie almost passes out. Good thing Kareem catches her. Then he brings the two over to have a bite. Later, while preparing dinner, he worries about Laura because she's looking too shaken up. She gets pissed and the two want to leave, but Kareem wants them to stay until they say what's going on. Virginie, regardless, forces to leave. Outside Virginie's locust pens, that hobo with the shotgun from earlier tries to look for an already dead dog. But he doesn't know this until he opens one of the locust containers and finds a whole mob of locusts. Later, Kareem drives the two girls home, and then he pretends to leave, but sneakily and quietly goes inside one of the greenhouses, where he finds that dinner is served. Kareem's of course taken by surprise and he encounters Virginie. He's looking at her with disgust before retreating. Virginie then heads to Laura's room. While that's happening, Kareem gets a gas can, douses the greenhouses and the dome with gasoline. They're set ablaze. Virginie goes mad once again, grabs a fire extinguisher and runs outside, only to be tried to stopped by Kareem. She's frantically trying to extinguish those flames, but Kareem sees a massive swarm of locusts gathering just above him. Kareem asks her to get inside and turn off all the lights, while he's horrified that those locusts are overrunning the house's window. Virginie's still busy extinguishing the flames, and afterwards, she rushes into the house to check up on the others. Oh man, there's so many locusts that they've sadly overrun Kareem. Laura's calling for help from her mom, but she's tailed by the swarms of locusts, so she runs away from the scene. Virginie goes into hot pursuit before the locusts get to her daughter. Laura's about to turn into locust chum if she doesn't hide in the lake, which she does through a boat. So Virginie cuts herself on the beach and smears blood all over her face to draw the locusts in, saving Laura. She dives out of the boat's protection only to witness the horrible scene of her mom being eaten alive, while thousands of locusts dive inadvertently for that lake. Laura's swimming for her mom, and for a brief moment of doubt, she surfaces. So, nobody mentioned this to Gaston, right? This was The Swarm by Netflix. Till the next creepy crawly flick, farewell and take care.